What does fearless mean for you, and how do you turn fear into a strength?
You turn fear into a strength by...
What does it take to turn a dream into a globally recognized fashion brand? Rebecca Minkoff, along with her brother Uri, built their brand from the ground up, starting with a simple t-shirt design that captured national attention.
A mental fortitude you need to have as an entrepreneur, because at the end of the day, it's your company, right? It's you. And no other employee you ever have is going to care as much as you.
Now, with stores across the world and a product line ranging from handbags to jewelry, Rebecca Minkoff has become a household name in fashion. But the story goes deeper.
There's this obsession with building without figuring out profitability. I'm of the mindset that not every business should or needs funding. We believe that women who are in positions who have made it should get paid for their time to mentor and advise other women.
Rebecca isn't just revolutionizing fashion. She's on a mission to empower women through her RM Superwomen platform, encouraging women to live boldly and fearlessly. In this episode, we dive into Rebecca's journey from a bold idea to a worldwide brand, and how she's using her influence to create real change. And the real question, what drives her to keep breaking barriers, both in fashion and in life?
What does fearless mean for you, and how do you turn fear into a strength?
You turn fear into a strength by doing the thing that scares you, doing the thing that holds you back. Build your business to be profitable from the beginning.
You won't want to miss this conversation.
Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network. HubSpot has been a huge supporter of the show, and I'm happy they are, because I'm a huge believer in HubSpot. I've used it for everything from this show to all the companies I've ever run in the past. And I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience. And let me ask you a question. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to figure out marketing. Either you're doing it yourself or you have a team. And do you ever feel like your marketing team is just running from fire to fire, creating endless content, launching campaigns, generating leads, scoring them, nurturing them, and just when you put out that one fire, 3 more pop up? These days, marketers have never been more spread thin. That's where HubSpot and its new built-in AI assistant, Breeze, come in. When you combine the power of Marketing Hub and Content Hub, every quarter can be your best quarter. Imagine AI that instantly remixes your content for any channel, smart lead scoring that automatically spotlights your hottest prospects, and an AI-powered analytics suite that puts all your KPIs in one place. Plus, AI co-pilots and agents that handle those time-consuming tasks that you've been juggling. Stop spreading yourself thin. Marketing is tough enough. Building a business is tough enough. Stop putting out fires. Start making major moves with HubSpot. Visit HubSpot.com/marketers to learn more. Rebecca, you kicked off your career with the I Love New York tee on Jenna Elfman, and now you've dove into podcasts, you've dove into the public eye, you've dabbled in the metaverse. How has your idea of, air quotes, making it in fashion changed since that first big break?
So I guess what people might not know, or assumptions they have about that first big break, is when you get that break, you're making a lot of money or you're suddenly rich, right? But I think the big break there was definitely not that. I was definitely delinquent on my rent, having my roommate confront me in the hallways as I kind of like snuck around her hours wise. The big break was momentum and wind behind my sales, right? It was that stores would not hang up on me when I called them. The second big, I think, milestone was I didn't have to call my bank to check my balance to see if I could go out to dinner. You know, I remember that being a big milestone of like, I still memorized Chase's phone number, because I would call every time I had a dinner, like, is there enough money in my account, right? You couldn't log on to the app that exists now. And so I think that we all view success from very different places. And I think, you know, for the longest time, I thought making it was really all about how much money you have. Now making it for me is how much time do I get to spend with my family where I'm not thinking about work. And it's more of a mental shift, because for so long, I'd say with my first 3 children, you know, the struggles and challenges of the business were such that even during bath time, bedtime, vacations, in my mind, I'm somewhere else. And so to me, the luxury is, no, in my mind, I'm with you. I leave my phone we go do whatever we do, and I come back to what I come back to, and that's okay. And so I think that as I've gotten older, those like markers of success has really shifted from what you think, like, I just need to make enough money to like go on vacation, like that it all changes.
You know, it's interesting because it doesn't matter how much money you make. You can always find ways to be distracted and not present. And I'm actually curious it's actually, you know, I don't have kids yet, and I've thought about this a lot, and I can't wait to have kids, but I keep telling myself I'm in the season of like building right now. And the second I have kids, I'm going to devote attention to them, and I'm building right now so that I can devote attention. Do you feel like having a family changed your perspective, or was it like a forced almost, okay, so I'm realizing that there's unlimited levels to this game. This is where I want to focus my attention now.
I think it's not as black and white. I think with my first child, I was very cognizant of the fact that I wanted to be a very present mom, and being in New York and seeing a lot of mothers who farm out their children to full-time childcare. I didn't want that to be my story, you know? So I made sure he was brought to me for lunchtime when I was breastfeeding him every day. I made sure I left the office at 6. I can't tell you that I didn't work after he went to bed, or I didn't work sometime on the weekends. But I think, you know, I wanted to test my own boundaries and say what was uncomfortable or comfortable for me versus what I'm seeing around me and on social media. Mm-hmm. And with each child, I had to do that, and the boundaries shifted. It got different. And I think that when you are in the season of building, it's impossible to not have your mind on that. I don't, you know, and then when you add a kid to it, it's like both and, right?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest signifier and shift that I was able to achieve is when we sold the company 2 years ago. A lot of the things that normally would keep me up at night are someone else's problem. And I'm still there, and I'm a happily paid employee. And I'm probably working harder in different ways than I was before, but I get to focus on the things that I love, the things that I do best, and the stressors that would be like, how do we make payroll, or how are we going to, you know, get the next, you know, the Erie Canal is clogged. How are we going to get our things off the boat? Whatever it is not my problem. And I just said, you know what? I sold. That's someone else's problem, and they have to deal with that. And so that's taken a lot of the mental load.
Yeah.
I spent 20 years building. So it's a different era for me.
I'm so curious, when you look at, you know, even that like sort of overnight success, which is never overnight, how many iterations or how many sort of failures did you go through before that break?
Oh, you're always failing. The break is like, I would like, and I think that, I don't know where we get this misconception, but like entrepreneurship is like, you're dead in the water most of the time. And then, you know, then you get this wind at your sails, and it's like, how fast can you get that boat to go before you're dead in the water again? And I think it's a series of that. And so the failures are everything from, you know, no quality control with our first overseas factory that put Kate Spade hardware and Rebecca Minkoff bags. And I didn't have quality control either. You know, my customer got to give me a nickname, Quebec Spankoff, for that one. To, you know, a couple of years ago, we had changed over to a new warehouse. We didn't do a stress test, and went into Q4, you know, Black Friday. Someone put in a Chinese character into the zip code. It clogged and messed up 10,000 people's orders.
My goodness.
Yeah. So I sent 10,000 free gifts to angered Black Friday customers who, you know, I ruined their Christmas or whatever. Then I got shit for apologizing and taking ownership for that. Like, and I was like, I can't win here. So I think, you know, then there was COVID, which we almost went out of business. You know, 70% of our business overnight evaporated. So I think, I am never not surprised by holes in the boat now. And I think it's just a matter of resilience, and do you get back up? And some of the people tap out. They're like, can't handle this, too much. I'm not here for this party. And it's like, sometimes I feel like half the reason I'm here is I just showed back up.
Yeah, I know. Actually, you know, I'm thinking about it now. So obviously you are set to do Housewives, and that's going to be massive exposure. But all the things that you've gone through in your career, it doesn't matter what happens now with Housewives, with whatever drama on the show. Like, entrepreneurs, the mental calluses they build, it's just next level what you've gone through. So Bravo fan base is huge. People are going to love you. People are going to hate you. But the anxiety of screwing up 10,000 bags, I think, is slightly more than some people talking shit on Instagram. So I think you're going to be good.
Well, it was funny because I can't share too much about what happens, but, you can see from the trailer, someone's giving me some shit. And, I wasn't really bothered by it. Like, it didn't hurt my feelings. I wasn't upset. And some of the girls were like, she bullied you. What are you going to do about it? And I was like, this is nothing. Do you know what I've been through? Like I've got 20 years of like really messed up shit, like messing up 10,000 orders for people's Christmas and ruining, Santa. Like that's harder to recover from than someone's, snarky comment.
1,000%. If you look back at your journey, hindsight's always 20/20. This is a corny question, but you'll get where I'm going with this. If you were going to make like an I love blank shirt based on the one thing that has really been central in your journey, building everything that you've built, all the different seasons of your life, what would that shirt say? What was that thing, that mindset, that hack, that framework that really took you to where you are?
I think it's the title of my book, Fearless. A lot of people see the title and they're like, am I going to read this book and not feel fear? And I say, no, you're going to feel fear, but you do it anyways. It's the fact that you acknowledge that it's scary, that it's hard, that it's tough, that you have to take crazy risks and really put yourself on the line, but you just try it, right? Whether or not you're failing publicly or not, like a lot of people, especially with going on the show, were like, aren't you scared? I was like, yeah, I'm scared. I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I've heard these fans can be quite terrible, but like I said to my husband the day that I signed, the contract, I said, I can predict our life if we don't do this, but I can't predict our life if we do. And that's fun. And he was like, you're fucking crazy, but okay.
Well, now he's going to be along for the ride to some degree as well. So
he made sure he wasn't in it at all. So.
Really? That's so funny. You mentioned, when you were building, you've spoken about education and connection, and the fact that, you consider yourself an outsider when you started in fashion, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So talk to me about the concepts of education, connection, being entrenched in an industry. Why do you think that you were successful in spite of these things? Or is that actually an advantage?
I'll never know that other path in my sliding doors life. But I think that, I came to realize, too late in the game, if you go to this school and you meet these teachers and they have this connection, they get you the job there or at the magazine, and then you're the intern. And, you could kind of map out the ladder that a lot of successful designers took. And I had been always entrepreneurial. I remember when my mom used to sell, go with me here, it was the 80s, cast covers, right? They were like stretchy fabric cast covers at the flea market in San Diego. And I set up my table next to her. I was probably 6 or 7, and I was selling puffy painted sweatshirts, and I didn't sell anything. But all week I'd prepare my merch to go sell next to her. And it was so exciting for me to be able to like think that I might sell something. So I think that mindset I've had for a long time, and I just couldn't conceive of working any longer than I had worked. I moved to New York. I had an internship. It was paid. When I say paid, it was minimum wage, which was probably $3 an hour. And 6 months in, said, you should hire me. I'm doing the work of an employee. And she said, you're right. And she hired me and paid me $6 an hour. So I think after working there for over 3 years, I just was like, I'm working really hard, call it naivety. I wouldn't say I had any ego then, but whatever it was that made me go like, if I'm going to work this hard, I want it to be for me. Right.
Yeah.
And I just had that thing in my soul that was like, I have to start this again. And doesn't matter what comes my way. I was essentially not homeless, had no money. Like I could have gone home to my parents in Florida at any moment, But I had many times where I couldn't pay my bills. I had nowhere to sleep at night and didn't have a place to stay. And I was just like, I'm going to keep going. I'm keeping going. Like, my mom would call me and be like, it's okay. Just come home. Please come home. And I'd be like, no, I'm going to figure this out. I'm sleeping on this person's couch tonight. I found a random room on 10th Avenue and 28th Street. I'm not allowed to use any room except the bedroom, but I'm going to do it. You know, I just had to keep going. And I think some people have that and some people don't.
Do you think I wrestle with that particular point a lot, because I've heard some people say, very, very successful investors say, like, entrepreneurship is built into the person. So it was a very unpopular opinion that one investor had. It's like, if I'm going to invest in you, show me your lemonade stand, or show me the cards that you arbitraged in grade 3 or grade 6. Show me show me the lawn care business. And it's actually a really tough pill for me to swallow, because my parents weren't entrepreneurial, and I worked 9 to 5s, but there was a point where my mind shifted. And I think that, but I also feel like I went through, like mentally, it was very difficult to get that mind shift. But it sounds like you almost were, from a young age, entrepreneurial, and you dabbled less in the 9 to 5 W-2, which nothing wrong with that, but less in that and more in the, I need to build my own thing. First of all, do you believe that most, because it's never going to be black and white, but most entrepreneurs are born entrepreneurial? And then again, 2-part question, which I hate doing, but it is relevant. So are most entrepreneurs born entrepreneurial? And secondly, if yes, how do you train yourself to be more entrepreneurial?
I think that, I don't know that it's like born in you, but I think that it sprouts at different ages of people's lives. Like some of the women on my podcast I meet, it happens later in life, right? Where they're just like, okay, I figured this out. I've done the Wall Street thing. I've got enough money saved. I'm going to start my company with all the smarts I learned. But I think there's a mental fortitude you need to have as an entrepreneur, because at the end of the day, if it's your company, right, it's you. And no other employee you ever have is going to care as much as you or want to build it as much. And I think that it requires a strength that you don't know until you're in it, a mental strength that you don't know until you're in it. And if you have a partner, that can be awesome. It can also complicate things too, right? If you have different views on things. And so it's like, I'll never forget, we had a president who, when I went out on my first maternity leave and I came back and I was having the baby come into the office, you know, during certain times to feed him, and by the way, that was, if anyone else wanted to do that, it wasn't special treatment I was giving myself. Like, you can all do that. And she was like, you know, it must be so nice to like have your maternity leave, like be a free for all, and you can bring your kid in. And I was like, excuse me, I cut my maternity leave. And everyone can do this. And the employees are the lucky ones. They get to go on maternity leave and not worry about a goddamn thing. Whereas every maternity leave I had, I'm still fucking working. And she was like, oh, sorry, you're right. I'm sorry I said that. And it was just this like thing that I just remember being like, wow, there are perks that you don't know or think that you get as an employee.
Yeah.
When it's not your business, that I think when you become an entrepreneur are kind of shocking.
So the person who mentioned that to you, that was a woman, that was a president. Why do you think there was such an adverse reaction to you doing that?
So women in my industry that are, I would say, 10 to 20 years older than me were in another animal of an age. They were in an era of male domination, no hope for most women to ascend. They were treated horrifically. They had to be like men, like the bad idea of men.
Like the Mad Men version of yes, understood.
The Mad Men man, yeah. To succeed. And so she didn't get to have, you know, the space and freedom to enjoy first motherhood. She had to come back 3 months after and not talk about it, you know, get her work done, stay as late as she had to stay, could never kind of be like, I got to go home now. I have a newborn at home. Mm-hmm. So I think that was her visceral reaction to seeing it again firsthand. But it totally changed when she had her daughter, or she watched her daughter have a child, and she apologized to me. And she was like, I'm so sorry. I'm seeing what my daughter is going through without the flexibility that you've given women in the workplace. And I'm really sorry I gave you a hard time.
I just want to take a second and thank the HubSpot Podcast Network for supporting Success Story. Now, if you enjoy Success Story, you're going to love other podcasts in their network like Business Made Simple, hosted by Donald Miller. If you've ever wondered why some businesses take off while many struggle, Donald Miller takes the mystery out of growing your business with actionable strategies that you can implement today. Whether you're trying to build a stronger team, craft a clearer message, or boost your bottom line, Business Made Simple delivers the frameworks that you need to succeed. Listen to Business Made Simple wherever you get your podcast. It's actually, I think when something like that happens, we forget how recent history is. And we forget how shitty circumstances were, like not that long ago, like with people that were still working. It's not like these people are retired. Like they dealt with a lot of shit in their career. And it's just, it's very sad because I've actually heard this. I've heard this and it's unfortunate. I've heard that from women, sometimes they get the least career help and mentorship from other women. And that seems to just be such a toxic, unfortunate circumstance. But I think that you just described it perfectly. We have to put ourselves in the shoes of what some of these individuals went through throughout their career to really understand why they're so stressed in their work environment and why they act or react a certain way. But I mean, honestly, the way to counteract that is to just have these conversations and to do more of what you're doing and to interview more incredible women leaders and talk about how they've created this workspace and work environment that's just amazing for everybody. I think that's really how you win and you modernize and you be better.
And you know what? You're still going to make people unsatisfied. I remember this was it was definitely pre-COVID. Let's just say it was 2018. I sat all the moms in my office down. I said, what do you need to succeed? And I was aghast at some of the requests because they were like, all right, I was like, this is too crazy. Like, it was like, I want you to pay me when I'm not working from home, when I have to stay home, and I want you to pay for my kids' daycare if my nanny is sick, if you want me to come work. And I was like, I love all these ideas, but like, I am not the government and I can't pay your nanny or for your daycare. If you elected to have a child, like, I can.
Well, it's tough too, because there's a lot of expenses associated. Now then, in that case, somebody could go work for like a massive, billion-dollar publicly traded, even trillion-dollar publicly traded company that maybe has those benefits. But there also has to be a balance between what the company can afford and keep the lights on and how to serve the people that work for you. And that's always like you want to talk about entrepreneurial headaches and stresses. I mean, that's one for sure.
Oh my God, it's huge. I mean, even with my other company, Female Founder Collective, we're a really tiny team. And at first we wanted to extend a very long maternity leave for our employees. And then I looked at my co-founder, I said, I want to do this, but we can't afford for one of our 7 employees to be out for 4 months. Like, we just can't, so we have to scale it back. And when we get bigger, we can look at, making it longer. But I think people forget, again, like you said, size of company and the reality of what a company can afford to do at its size and stage.
I think that actually, something that I've thought of, and this is not just for women and maternity leave in particular, but having these super candid conversations when you're hiring people so that you both know where you want to go and you both know if you can support each other. And I think that this definitely extends way beyond women, because now people aren't staying in careers 20 years anymore. And like, my suggestion is make contracts for 2 years and then help them figure out where they want to get 2 years from now, and just commit to each other for minimum 2 years. And if they want to go different job title, more, bigger salary, whatever it is, different company, you commit for the 2 years to each other. Then you help as a business leader, you help them get to where they want to go. So there's no bullshit, there's no quiet quitting, there's no all this garbage that comes with these lack of candor. That's really, I think, the thing. Anyway.
No, what I was going to say as a counterpoint is, when my first employee quit, I felt like it was the same feeling as being broken up with, because I was like, but we're a family. We were going to do this forever together. And even in the last year, like, I had been, saying to my CEO, I was like, there's 8 key people. We have to hold on to the 8. They can never leave. This is our team. and one resigned and one got promoted, moved somewhere. And then we started, getting in fresh eyes, fresh talent. And now I'm like, when you resign, like, great. It's now I look at it as an opportunity. Like, you get to go on, we get someone who's excited, enthusiastic, and it's made it a lot easier to be that nimble and like, great, okay, good, next, let's find an awesome person. And recently we've had a ton of new team members join, and the energy is intoxicating. And it's like, oh, that's all we needed. We just needed new blood. And so it's not as scary, I think, as it used to be.
I want to talk just one more. I want to talk about all the work you're doing with the podcast, with Superwoman, with the Female Founder Collective. But before we go into that, I just want to, you've taken a whole bunch of risks through your career. This is like the last point on kind of like the origin story and the come up. If you could highlight one risk or one shit almost hit the fan moment when you were building that really stood out outside of those 10,000 bags, because that definitely is but that's not a risk that went well. What would be a risk that you took that went well?
I talk about it often, but we were the first brand to talk to our customer. There was no other brand in 2006 talking directly to their customer. Everything back then was through a boutique or through a store and magazines, and that was it. Social media was just beginning. Facebook was still closed to college campuses. So if you go back to that landscape, the fact that I was online talking and DMing on like the purse forum to her, taking, crowdsourcing, that wasn't a term. I'd literally be like, they'd be like, we love that purple leather you use, but can we have it with the pink zipper? And I'd be like, great. I need 60 of you to commit to an order, and I'll go uptown and I'll buy the leather, and I'll, run your credit cards personally and do it. And they were all like, we're all in. And so I think that the amount of shit we got for talking to our customer, like our biggest retailers at the time, Saks, Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, Neiman Marcus, were like, you can't talk to your customer. Like, that's beneath you. Like, the designer needs to stay above it all, in their ivory tower, untouchable. And you look like desperate talking to her. And I was like, I think, my brother and I, who's my co-founder, were like, we think this is a good thing, and like, go with us here. And they're like, we're not going with you, or even working with influencers. Again, we were told, like, why are you working with these C-list people?
There's a lot of like elitism, and I guess it's fashion design.
I mean, there's still a layer that shall not be penetrated by the likes of me. But there was a lot of elitism. There was a lot of rules, and we just didn't, we didn't have a choice. And B, we just felt like this was the future, was talking to your customer, engaging with content creators, and really building a more democratic community, I guess.
I love that. I think that's such a smart, and it's so funny how you perceive that as a risk, because I look at that as the least risky thing you could possibly do for your business. I look at that as almost like the de facto when you're a startup.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the playbook.
20 years ago, it wasn't.
It's very interesting. Okay. Female Founder Collective, you have over, when I did some research, 9,000 members. Do you have more than that now? It's obviously.
So we've structured the community in two ways. We have a free membership for those who can't quite afford yet to pay. So that's about 25,000 people participate in that.
Okay.
And then the 9,000, is like our private community that we have, where we're going real deep on education. So my co-founder, Ali, and I really felt that the missing link for a lot of founders is all the nitty gritty, ugly shit of business. And can we get women that have done it and succeeded to teach these like modules to other women? So whether it's in-person Zooms, and then the community itself, where you can go ask anyone anything, what's the best AI to use, or, what's the best CRM platform? And you can really go deep with other women who are probably going to give you a much better recommendation than, searching for it yourself.
What is the sort of the one universal problem, concern, repeated post that comes up again and again and again and again, and it's all women founders? So what's happening that you just want to put out to any woman who's building something incredible right now that you see repeated?
I see that due to the last, I'd say maybe 5 to 10 years of raising money, right? Now you see women are also raising money. We all know the percentage is 3% of women get funding. But I'm of the mindset that not every business should or needs funding. And there's too much this desire to be like, I raised this and therefore I'm a success. No, you're not. You just raised money. You're now beholden to investors. You sold a big chunk of your company way too early. And there's this obsession with building without figuring out profitability. And trust me, we were there. We were in the raise, build, doesn't matter. And then when sentiment changes and investors are like, are you profitable? Oh, we needed to be profitable. Cool. That's going to take us 10 years to figure out. Like, build your business to be profitable from the beginning. Like, there's nothing wrong with slower and steadier growth, or build your business to have a balance of like profitability and allow you lifestyle, right? Mobility. And instead, I'm meeting too many women are like, I'm trying to raise, I'm building, and I'm just like, I'm just like, I think they're all just looking at what they saw the last 5 to 10 years as that's the only way to build a business.
Well, I think you could actually fall into a trap. So if you know the numbers of how many women actually successfully raise, which are horrible, and those numbers shouldn't be the numbers that they are, but they are the numbers that they are. So say I was actually at this conversation with Julia Borstein, and it's like 2-3%. It was like really bad. It's almost like when you hear the number, you're like, no, that can't be right. But if I was a woman entrepreneur and I was looking at that number, and I also tied into the Silicon Valley, everybody's raising, I would give up before I started, because not only do I have, it's not only like a 99% failure rate, but I have a 2 or 3% chance to go raise money and everybody's raising money. So you have to like shift the lens, shift the paradigm of entrepreneurship. So you understand, okay, it's super fucking shitty that these are the numbers, but there's other ways to build businesses that I would actually say not just women should adopt, all entrepreneurs should adopt. But I think that, again, if you go into it and you look at those numbers, I don't want great women entrepreneurs to give up before they even start just because they're getting in their own head.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should give up, but the amount of women I meet, like, I'm making clothing for tall women and I'm raising money. I'm like, no one's going to invest in that. That's not a huge hockey stick of scale. Open a great boutique, open a great e-commerce site, sell on TikTok shops, small batch. And I've had the pleasure and honor of meeting so many women who are on my podcast, but they've done, Pink Lily, over 100 million in sales, never has taken a dime. I think there's some really exceptional. Monique Rodriguez, one of the largest women of color exits in history. Like, she didn't take money or try and raise to scale. And by the time money came to her, she was so valuable and profitable that her multiples are like mind-blowing.
Have you had Nancy Twine on? I got to make an intro. Oh, you have had? Okay. She lives in Florida now, so I know. she's amazing.
I have such a girl crush on her.
She's awesome. She's absolutely awesome. No, when you just started talking through some of the people on your show, I was
going to name her. She was going to be the third name I threw out there.
No, she's great. She's great. The podcast is called Superwoman. To play on that, what's your personal kryptonite and how do you deal with it?
I think that kryptonite is the thing that weakens you, right?
Yes. You got it. Yeah.
Sometimes I say it as like, that's the thing you take that gives you the superpower, but I have that.
No. That's like radioactive something or whatever. Get bitten by a spy. Yeah, that's not the kryptonite.
My kryptonite. I feel lately that I am I feel like we're in this time of like, I have ADD and I have ADD and look at me, I have ADD. I don't necessarily believe in that label, but I definitely find myself distracted when I'm, I have a laundry list of things that are on my calendar. And then I have all these things that pop into my head that I like have a big notebook of lists that I keep. But I definitely feel like getting a task through to completion in one focused amount of time is hard for me right now because I have a lot of things going on. And that is probably my kryptonite right now.
So that's shiny object syndrome, basically.
Yeah. Well, I got literally typing an email. I'm like, oh, I just had an idea. And then I'll just go off and do that, or,
I mean, but so it's interesting. So let's just touch on that, because that serves you to some degree because you're always creative, you're always thinking, but it can also be a detriment if it takes you away from the main thing. And even before we started recording, you're like, Scott, like, how did you grow your podcast? I'm like, this is it. I'm all in on this right now at this particular season of my life. So just by virtue of this is how I identify myself as a podcast host, which, by the way, took a long time to get to the point where I would say this is what I do for a living. But I think that you have to have a balance. But I'm curious how you sort of manage doing the main thing very, very well, while also being a creative and having all these other ideas that could contribute to the main thing that you want to build, but you don't know when it's actually going to help it, hurt it, take it to the next level. It could be 6 months, 5 years where a creative idea actually helps the business.
A lot of it is trial and error. And being like, what?
I was going to say, like, I'm going to try this for a little bit, and then this is what has to happen for me to continue to put energy into it or to kill it. That thought process.
I mean, it differs. So like we have a collaboration coming out that was so much work with the biggest movie Wicked is coming out. It's the most money that NBC has ever spent on a movie, period. And when you see what the work and effort they put into the film, it's incredible. We were chosen as like the bag merch partner for launch. So like we have 2 bags. Now, when you go, oh, we're launching 2 bags, it seems like a no-brainer. It was so much work to get it out there, to sort of circumvent our usual production line and make, a limited edition. And I, at the end of the day, was like, is anyone who sees the movie going to need this bag? I don't know, but I wanted to try it. And even though if you add up the hours of work and the team involved versus the amount of bags we made, you're not going to get your money back just on that, right? On the salaries versus how many limited edition bags we made, because they had to be special and sell out and whatever. But does that get you in someone's mind somewhere further, whether it's in the media or the customer? That is sort of intangible. So sometimes these things to me are intangible things that I just have to hope are working, right? I guess another example is, for the longest time, I spoke all over anything you asked me to speak on, women, whatever. I didn't charge any money, and I was like, at some point, I'll feel like I am worth X. And when that happens, I'm not going back. And I'll say no to a lot of things because they're not paying. And I remember that shift. I asked for a number that made me want to throw up, and I got it. And I was like, great, we're here now. And so I think it's just, and then there have been times where it hasn't worked. Things I've tried. And so I think it's just, for me, each area has its own timelines. Getting a bag to market takes 9 months. I spoke for free for 3 or 4 years before I ever asked anyone to pay me. So I think, or like with our first attempt at TikTok, I tried everything, right? I tried the dancing. I tried the funny thing. I tried the college advice. I tried the let me show you my bag. Nothing worked, Scott. And I was like, all right, TikTok, I'm fucking done with you. I'm taking a break. But now I have a woman on my team who's like, this is the approach and this is what we're going to try. And I'm like, great, let's try it again. So I'll sometimes come back to things just to,
I want to take a second and thank Range Rover Sport for supporting today's episode. Now, let's talk about tools that match your ambition, that match the ambition of everybody who's listening today, who has taken risks, who has up-leveled their personal, professional development, who has tried to build their own thing. Everybody listening gets it. There is a moment when the thing you're trying to build, the challenge that you're taking on, it finally starts to take off. There's like this rush of excitement and possibility, and that feeling that you get when you get behind of the wheel of a Range Rover Sport, because we've all had that perfect drive when the road, the car, and you're all in perfect harmony. But that's not just by chance. The Range Rover Sport is designed to make every drive feel that way. And the Range Rover Sport is not just for impressing others. It's how you feel behind the wheel. It's how you feel when things are going the way they're supposed to go. Whether or not you're navigating city streets, you're exploring back roads, the Range Rover Sport combines refinement with a sense of adventure. It matches your own versatile lifestyle. With features like adaptive off-road cruise control, you can tackle challenging terrain with confidence. The dynamic air suspension always makes sure you get a smooth ride. It responds to road conditions for optimal performance. So from daily commutes to weekend getaways, the Range Rover Sport is ready for whatever you have planned. It's more than just a vehicle. It is a companion for all of your journey. So if you're ready to elevate your driving experience, visit LandRoverUSA.com and configure your Range Rover Sport today. I think that's healthy. I mean, you don't kill anything off completely. You're open to new ideas, but if it's not working, it's not working. And you don't want to let that distract you from, again, the main thing.
Yeah, or like we could take NFTs, right? We had our first NFT, the first female fashion designer in the States to do an NFT. The first launch sold out in 9 minutes. Huge success. You know, we went back for it again. Also really successful. Third time, I was like, this is it, man. We've hit the mother load. Like, I watched the day that we launched, like, the industry tank. And I was like, all right, we're going to be done with this. But when you saw the numbers and you saw Forever 21 made, what, $2 million on one little hat, I was like, we can make a bag and we can sell $2 million worth of product on Roblox too. And we didn't. And that's okay.
You know, you've said before that a no is free. So what's the best no that you've ever gotten?
I think that the best no we've ever gotten was we wanted to do a show that was open to the public. This was in 2015, I believe. No one was opening their fashion weeks to the public. We wanted to cast influencers, which they had been accepted as content creators, but no one would dare put them in a fashion show. And we had to appeal to not only to the city of New York, but the Soho district, which was full of people who were like, I'm an actress, I have to run my lines and I can't have the crowds there distracting me. So we literally went into a little college classroom. We pitched to these people. We'd hear all the reasons why, like, I need to be able to walk my dog in the morning and you're going to be setting up to the actress. And they were so happy, like, unanimously, no, you cannot close down this one block of the street for a day to do your thing. We had a store on the street, which is why we could even get that meeting. And I just remember being like, yeah, we're not done. We know people in the city. And so we were able to get, you know, someone above this like group of angry tenants, Soho tenants, to like bypass and approve. And the hurdles to do that show were obnoxiously overwhelming. But when we did the show, just breaking so many barriers and boundaries, having 5,000 people show up was just this feeling I wish you could bottle. That really felt like we'd pushed through every single hurdle that had been thrown at us, from government to city to parking to whatever it was, and made it happen. It was really cool.
I love that. But on the flip side of that, same idea of no, those were no's that you overcame. And that's such a good feeling. But also as an entrepreneur, saying no is sometimes very important to respect your time and your energy and whatnot. So how do you decide? What's your framework for saying yes, saying no? I mean, you must have one because people hit you up all the time, new ideas, new concepts. And I think that this sort of plays back into that shiny object syndrome. So it's useful to a point, but then it's not. So how do you think through these problems?
I think many of my no's are tied up in boundaries, but it's also tied up on how much research have you done. If you're going to stand in, front of me and meet me and go, how did you get your start? Like, no, like that's online, right? Like, ask me something that's actionable that I can do for you in an email or an intro or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell that to a lot of people. And then sometimes I just have to get more information. You know, I'm pitched all the time to invest. And my thesis now is, if I can, and this is no shade to anyone, man or woman, asking for money. Like, I am in a season of spending money on my 4 children right now. And, I'm really not investing because these people are really expensive humans that I brought into the world. And so it's kind of like, is that the best use of my funds right now? I need an ROI in 1 year, not 10. And unless it's something wildly, crazy that everyone has to get in on. So I just think I run it through my own filters depending on what the ask is.
But you have filters, and that's the most important. You have filters. You set these. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that we started with Female Founder Collective, we call it the North, is we believe that women who are in positions who have made it should get paid for their time to mentor and advise other women. So we've set up a marketplace of women, incredible, accomplished women. It's findyournorth.co. But, now I'm just like, you want time with me? Here's my link. Like I'm giving back till I'm blue in the face with our nonprofit. And there needs to be a little bit of a filter or a boundary to I can't just let you pick my brain. I don't have 15 minutes for you to pick my brain, as much as I would love that. Come to one of my events, listen to my podcast. You know what I mean? Like, it's out there.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And I think that keeps you sane. Like, you say yes and when you're in a season of building, and I'm sure there's different quotes around this, but maybe 20 to 25, maybe late 20s, say yes to everything. But then when you start to make it, when you start to have success, it is important to set boundaries, because also, just to sort of inject a different perspective, if you aren't happy with the work that you're doing, if you're jumping on a Zoom call to give someone some advice and you're just dreading it because you're burnt out because you're saying yes to everything, you're also not showing up in your best self, and you're also not helping them. So I think it's very important to set those boundaries in as an entrepreneur, because you get so much thrown at you. The last thing I am super curious to understand, because you've done this successfully and you will have to continue doing this successfully, is putting yourself out in the public and having just eyes looking at you and what you're building. And that was sort of like the initial moment that brought you into the public spotlight. So this is not new for you, but then even with Real Housewives, how do you leverage that? How do you harness it? How do you help it with your own goals? And it's not like a perfect process. We don't have to pretend that it's not going to be a little bit chaotic, especially with, again, Bravo fans and how crazy they are sometimes. But there has to be some thought process you went through when you went on this show. And it's like, this is going to be a net positive in my life for X reason. And that's at the extreme level, but also entrepreneurs that speak on stage, put themselves out there on a micro level, they can take some lessons from this as well.
I think depending on what it is you want to accomplish, some founders can just be behind the scenes and you never know or hear from them. And I think that's phenomenal. In my case, I am here of my customer because of her. She looks to me for, that personal connection that we started with. And that means showing up visually and audio and on TV. And so, I'll never forget, I think it was 2018, maybe 2017, where my brother was like, we're turning the camera to you. And I was like, no, I just want to be the designer in my I'll talk to her every once in a while. She'll see me at trunk shows, but I don't want it to be this. And he was like, it's time. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe what I have to do. And the first many times I had to do the selfie, I was wanted to throw up. Now it's second nature. And I think the decision to go on Housewives was we're about to celebrate 20 years. To be able to have my age demo customer see me in their homes once a week, see another side of me. You get a lot of sides of me on our brand, on my podcast, from my book, from my speaking. There's another side. And does that forge an even deeper connection? And again, I was like, why wouldn't I do this? And I don't have to approach it with, I'm hungry and starving and this is my one thing. And if it goes away, I don't have it. And I don't feel that most of the women approached being on the show because of that either. They're all great entrepreneurs and have their own businesses. But I just thought, you know what? As long as I know that I was me the whole time and I didn't become someone that disappoints someone else or is not who they think of me as, then I know that I gave it, I did it with integrity, I guess.
I love that. And then the last thing, you have a book called Fearless. Everyone's scared of something, obviously. What does fearless mean for you, and how do you turn fear into a strength?
You turn fear into a strength by doing the thing that scares you, doing the thing that holds you back. And I think I talk about it as a muscle. You learn to use it and get stronger and stronger at it. And again, 75% of the time it might end up in failure. But it's, do you get back up? Do you not wallow in it? Does your wallowing time shorten? The things that I'm scared of today are very different than the things I was scared of 10 years ago. And that shifts, Today I'm aghast as a mother with all the crazy stuff that trafficking of children or, shooting up in schools. Those are my fears. I don't have business fears. I don't have risks that we take in the company that scare me anymore, because I think we've tried so many things that I'm like, well, what's the worst that can happen? My business almost went out of business. I think when you confront that, like, what else could possibly go wrong?
That's pretty much it. And then you realize, like, even if that happens, well, I'm going to wake up tomorrow.
Right. I'm going to wake up and I'll start something else, or I'll, go get a job. So I think that for me, having faced the worst case scenario of like, okay, this isn't going to last. Like, now the fears are just normal, I guess, mom fears.
I love that. And those are good fears to have. Those are good fears that should never, those fears will never, ever go away. They're not like business fears. I know with my mom, I still think she stresses out.
My mom is still stressing out. She's like, you need to build you a fence and you don't have curtains yet. And they're going to be the paparazzi are coming into your home. I'm like, no, they're not. Just chill out. No one knows where I live.
Okay. If you wanted to, we spoke about a lot. What's one lesson or one, words of wisdom that you could tell your younger self that we didn't speak about today?
We talked a lot about fearlessness. And I think that early on, I cared a lot about what the elite would think of me, what the industry would think. Would I be a joke to my peers? And that really stopped me from going. I would go in and take the risk, but it was with that baggage. And I feel like, how much more risk would I have taken if I didn't care? Or how much better could I have been if I was like, no, this is the future, guys. You're coming on board or not. And not like, I'm sorry, we have to try this thing called talking to our customer. I know it sounds crazy, or like, it sounds ridiculous now, but at my fashion shows, we would have to sit, editors didn't want to look at influencers. So I had to put celebrities and editors across from each other, and then influencers in their own section, because they could not be looked at with the eyes of an editor, and it was just like that dumb shit. I should have been like, fuck you, here's the future, don't come to my show or not,
Yeah, just less apologizing for doing what is right. I think that's a very good lesson. Where do you want to send people? I mean, you have a podcast, you have a community, you have a book. Where can they get everything?
Okay, here we go. At Rebecca Minkoff, Instagram, at Becky Minkoff for my personal Instagram, my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity and Courage and Success, wherever you go, Audible as well. My podcast, Super Women with Rebecca Minkoff, wherever you listen to your podcast, it's available. And Female Founder Collective, if you're a woman-owned business and you feel like you need a community and great access to incredible women, femalefoundercollective.com.